You're now locked into Zone 32.
Grant Derflinger, Jake Miller.
Only on NeutralZoneInfractions.com.
NZI Properties.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of the Zone 32 podcast, brought to you as always by NZI Properties. Follow us on Twitter at NZI Properties. The man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Grant is here with me. Max can't be here because he was eaten by a bear, but he'll be digested soon enough to be back for another episode. Say what's up to the people, Grant.
Man, listen, we're back, dude. We're back with Wild Card Weekend, Super Wild Card Weekend, but this is not sponsored by Nickelodeon.
This ain't no Slime Time Live shit. What are we talking about? We talking about the games and how they let the F-bomb drop on Nickelodeon and scarring those kids for life along with SpongeBob.
They probably hear a lot worse at home.
Damn straight. We'll be talking about recapping all 6 of the wild card games today. First and foremost, wanted to give a shout out to old handsome Drew. We are with you. The podcast and the brothers are all with you.
Yeah, we love you, brother. Thoughts and prayers to you, man. We love you.
Thoughts and prayers to you and your family, my guy. You keep it easy. And you keep handling your business on the Tinder, though. Let's just get into it. Colts and the Bills. The Bills came out. They won that game 27-24. And to be frank, you can make the argument that the Colts outplayed them for most of that game. Running the ball at will. Josh Allen playing fine, making a couple of plays. And a couple of plays that were missed by the Colts really changed the balance of that game, including that miss from Phillip Rivers to Michael Pittman. So anyway, Grant, I'm going to start with you before I go into a diatribe. Give me your thoughts on the Colts-Bills game.
I mean, dude, the Bills are a good team. You know, I think, like I said in the last, when our prediction show, my X factor was Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers was going to be the X factor of the game. He decided who won and who lost. He pretty much decided who lost. I mean, they ran the ball really well. Jonathan Taylor is a freak. We're going to have a lot of fun watching him in the near future and for a long time. But, if the Colts had anybody besides a dude with a wet noodle as an arm, then they win that game. I mean, they played more physical, defensively. They did what they could for, you have Cole Beasley, you have, I'm a big fan of Gabriel Davis. We talk about that all the time. You and I, Jake, and, Stephon Diggs, John Brown was back. No run game. Josh Allen, did some things. He's very talented. Great arm strength. Sometimes those type of dudes give us trouble, which we see them this week, and we'll get into that on Thursday. But I think that Bills won their game. They kind of got that quarterback. They were. That was the thing. Just get over that hump. And they did that. So, you got to give them credit when credit's due. Congrats to Bills Mafia. It's going to be a fun week talking trash with them. We already started today. But the Colts have nothing to be ashamed of. I think that they have such a solid core. I think Phillip Rivers kind of isn't the answer there. If they can, get somebody else in there next year, make a trade for somebody like Matt Stafford or, depending on draft status, they're not going to be drafting high enough to really get anybody unless somehow Trey Lance or Mac Jones are around there. But, I think that, they played their game, they won the game, and, now they're off to have this wonderful team in a charm city come up with a bunch of crab cakes and put a foot in their ass.
Yes, sir. You already know what it is. The crazy thing about that game, you're not wrong. The Colts kind of dominated. They gained almost 500 yards of offense. Phillip Rivers his arm looked weaker than Peyton Manning in 2015. Everything was a floater. Everything took its sweet ass time getting those receivers. He should have thrown 2 or 3 interceptions, but the Bills didn't catch them. That's the reality of the situation. Of course, my X factor was the Bills defense, and I would have been right had it not been for a bad officiating decision by Brad Allen. That was obviously a fumble.
It really was. I don't know how you missed that, dude. That's so bad.
That's what I'm saying. It's what the hell is wrong with you? He's obviously getting up. He wasn't touched, and they punched the ball out. So,
and two, like you said, with the yardage part, a lot of that too, a lot of Phillip Rivers yards, they were just yards that, they might have contributed to something, but when he needed a play, he missed throws, like you said, the Pittman throw was huge. He missed a lot of those big throws on third downs. He's just, sometimes we just get to that point, man.
He is at the end of his career. Thought that going in whenever he left from LA to play for the Colts, but he also thought, who knows, maybe he'll play better than Jacoby Brissett, though That being said,
He's going to be the first granddad in the NFL.
he's going to be the first to field his own NFL team with however many of his kids that he has. Go along, Dad.
He's only like 2 away. I mean, you got to hit. It's like, you can't win the lottery if you don't buy lottery tickets.
Exactly. That's just what it is. So, Phil, we'll just tell you this from the Zone 32 to you. Either snip it up or wrap it up, son. Because I mean, what are we doing here? Your time is done in the NFL, and you're about to host your own offense or defense, whichever you feel like. Anyway, the Colts took advantage on the ground. Naheem Hines was really getting off and making plays. The Bills couldn't defend the tight end, really. Doyle was going off, making a lot of catches.
And he's been kind of beat up, too.
He has, and he's always that. Even when Andrew Luck was there, he was that tight end that was consistent for them, but never splashy. He was a nice player for him, but he was going off. The Bills didn't run at all. But
another thing too with that is, why did they go away from Mo Alley Cox, man? Like, he was a matchup nightmare. Athletic, strong hands, makes contested catches. Like, he balled out for them for like 4 straight weeks, and then Jack Doyle and Trey Burton come back and like, oh, dude, you were really good. But sorry, man, we paid these guys.
Exactly. Burton's a waste of a target. Alley Cox is substantially better, and he should be, really, you can make the argument he should be the tight end 1, and Doyle's the scrappier tight end 2.
I think Mo Alley Cox like 6'6", 6'7". I mean, you got to like, he played Division I power forward. Like, if you could tell me any other sport, you're like, hey, pull this player from another sport of any position of anything, I'm taking a basketball power forward to be my tight end. Like, you want to talk about rebounds? Like, it looks like they're sitting there catching like one of those John Elway Vertex balls with the whistles on the side.
Exactly, and that pipeline is not dry at all, given you came out with Gates and Graham, and all the other tight ends who came out who were former basketball players. And
Tony G.
Yep, I mean, that pipeline is strong, and that's a hell of a place to find those kind of players. But got to give credit to the Bills; they made the plays that they needed to, and they advanced and they get to host another playoff game. Moving on to the NFC, the Seattle Seahawks played host to the Los Angeles Rams, and much to my own surprise, which really shouldn't have been, the Rams came in and they punched them in the mouth. They played each other 2 weeks prior, and to be frank, the Rams kind of dominated on defense. Russell Wilson had a far less than stellar game. Goff didn't look much better, but Russell Wilson was 11-27 for 174 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick, and was sacked 5 times. And some of that was the second half. They also didn't have Aaron Donald out in the field, so that's even more inexcusable. But you got to give credit to the Rams defense, not even just with Aaron Donald. They've been playing extremely good ball. They give up the fewest yards per play in the league, fewest passing yards, total yards, yards per play, points, you name it, second in sacks. They are who they are, and Brandon Staley has done a great job with that defense, which is funny to say that any kind of defensive coordinator would come in and be an upgrade over the legend of Wade Phillips. But hey, that's what we had. So Grant, what was good? What you got in this game?
First of all, shout out to Aaron Donald. That guy is just a complete freak of nature, man. Like, he's fun to watch. Like, it doesn't matter I like the big guys. I like the guys in the trenches. Like, give me the meat and potatoes, bro. Like, and when you watch him, it's just not fair. Like, the guy moves like a running back. And like the way that he levels his body, the way that he contorts, his pass rush moves, his strength, like, the guy, you double him, triple him, it doesn't matter at all. And he's the most dominant, and I will say this on record, he is the most dominant and probably the best interior defensive lineman that I've ever seen. When it's all said and done, it's not even going to be a question that he's going to be a first ballot gold jacket, and he is going to be the greatest that has ever played the interior defensive line. Like, he's not even close to being done. He's just like at his, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's not even to his peak yet, I don't think. Like, I think he's right there. But he's going to, even if he levels off, he's still going to level off at 13 to 15 sacks a season. So, I mean, what do you do? And, I think that we all got a little bamboozled by Mr. I got completely limited. And, they just looked lost. Like, the Seahawks had no identity. Why they get away from the run game? There's no reason that Chris Carson shouldn't touch the ball. He's a phenomenal running back. You got Carlos Hyde. You have these backs that your team is built on power. Stop trying to force shit with Russell Wilson. That's what cost you a Super Bowl. Know your identity and follow through with it. And that's what a lot of Ravens fans, too, this year had a lot of shit to say with Greg Roman about this whole, went to the passing thing, 40 passes for Lamar, 50 passes for Lamar. Like, you are who you are. Trust the game and do it. Stop trying to contort to what the NFL wants you to be and what ESPN wants you to be and rack up all these stats and shit. Like, be who you are to win football games. People are like, oh, Lamar had 176 yards passing. He won the game. He also had 136 yards rushing. So I can't stand stats sometimes because you get a lot of ignorance when, like, you try to, like, people just don't understand the aspect of it and the situations that players put each other in. But Roethlisberger threw for 500 yards and lost the game and had 4 interceptions. So what's your point? You know what I mean? Like, and I think that we get enamored with the skill players that the Seahawks have. DK Metcalf is phenomenal. Tyler Lockett had 2 catches for 43 yards. First of all, why do you only have 2 catches when you're averaging 21 and a half yards a catch and you're the number 2 option on the team? Offensive line was beat up for the Seahawks. But, the Rams, they came in. They knew what they had to do. They weren't, they didn't back down from anything. Pretty crazy how everything started off with Wolford, his neck and everything. I hope he's all right. And then Goff coming in basically playing with 4 fingers. And, he looked good. He didn't try to force too much. They played just minimal, outline skeleton football, stuck to what they did, and they did the thing. And, I think we saw the emergence of Cam Akers too. He's a beast. He's very, very, very good. And I think that they need to keep riding him coming into this week. I think they have a shot, man. I mean, anybody has a chance on any given Sunday, especially I believe in the NFC. I don't think it's as much as a runaway as people think it is for the Packers. But I mean, what did you catch out of that?
Well, we'll preview this future matchup of Packers-Rams on a future date when the next episode comes out. But you're absolutely right. They dominated on the ground. And I was a little surprised because Seattle, for most of the year, they've been pretty good at stopping running backs. And since Jamal Adams came back and they made that trade for Carlos Dunlap, they've been a better defense. And it showed on Saturday because, I mean, Jared Goff had himself a less than stellar day, though he's also hurt coming off of relief. They had Wolford coming in for the beginning because of that. They didn't want to risk any kind of further damage to Goff and losing him for the rest of the postseason. So I get it. But yeah, the Rams front 7 dominated. Donald coming away with 2 sacks. Leonard Floyd coming away with 2 sacks. Morgan Fox had himself a sack. They are consistently harassing Russell Wilson, and Seattle should use him more as a runner. I understand the idea of being scared. Just who knows? Maybe my guy is going to take that one hit that I don't want him to take. But at the same time, if you're sitting back there like a wounded duck anyway, and you got big 285, 290-pound Aaron Donald coming your way, you're going to get hurt regardless. Like Tom Brady tore his knee up in the pocket. Aaron Rodgers was on the run making a throw outside the pocket, and he gets leveled by Anthony Barr, lost for the season. So it doesn't matter. You could be running and then get broken, but you can be in the pocket and lose your career too. Look at Andrew Luck. They didn't invest in an offensive line over there in Indianapolis, and they lose a guy who is touted to be the next John Elway to season-ending injuries and just a litany of injuries, him not playing all that much compared to the time he was off, and retiring at 29 to be an architect. I mean, that's just what it is. They should run Russell more. He actually ran the ball kind of effectively, 4 carries, 50 yards. There are scrambles, but nonetheless, if you have him as a threat as a runner, then those D linemen can't rush and pin their ears back like they were before. But you're absolutely right.
They like the thing is like the Seahawks' identity and what makes Russell Wilson is the ability to run the football, and not him to be able to run the football, but their offense to be able to run the football. Because if you look at all their successful years in Seattle, and even with Russell Wilson, his thing is you control the line of scrimmage. Seahawks used to control the line of scrimmage. They're a power run game. And what makes him good is play action, moving the sticks, getting out of the pocket, flowing the defense, making the defense flow to him where he throws cross field on those deep crossing routes or mid crossing routes or, shifting the defense, trying to go against it and kind of going against the grain. And they don't do that anymore. And they're trying to just play in his hands. And obviously it's not working. So that's kind of on their fault. And, there's no reason the Seahawks defense shouldn't have their way with the Rams offense. I think we're seeing to a point where the Legion of Doom has gone to the Legion of Poon.
Yep, that is exactly right. I mean, you got to give the Rams credit, though. Their front seven dominated. The back end clamps those receivers overall. I mean, shoot, Tyler Lockett he caught 2 of 4 balls for 43 yards. DK caught 5 for 96 and 2 touchdowns off 11 targets. And not all of those he was matched up with friggin' Jalen Ramsey. So, I mean, they won the battle. That defense won the battle against Russell Wilson and that offense. And that whole let Russ cook notion has been dead since they lost to Buffalo earlier this year. So that is what it is. You're right. Aaron Donald very well could go down as the greatest defensive player ever.
And Russ can't even thaw up the meat right now.
Hell no, he can't. He would take my frozen chicken breasts inside of my freezer and attempt to cook them now and wind up catching salmonella. That's how trash he is. But enough of that. We'll move on to the Saturday night game with Tony Dungy and Mike Tirico on the call. It was a closer game than I expected, and probably more than a few others, but the Washington football team came, they hosted the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they lost it by a score, 31-23 to Tampa, with Tampa now moving on to play an opponent who I will discuss later with another matchup. So Grant, tell me what's good.
That was a fun ass game to watch. I mean, we all saw Heineken get on the planet, dude. Taylor Heineke, man, much credit to him. ODU, what up? Stand up, Norfolk. But no, I mean, it's cool watching somebody like him, and he's got confidence in himself, and I totally dig that, whether they won or not. And he went in there he had expectations for himself. Nobody did. And I mean, I think he showed out. I mean, you saw social media, everybody's like, on the Heineke train. And I think it's cool. And I think, Washington might have something there to where they don't have to necessarily force something. They might have found a little diamond in the rough. And I think at least deserve that chance. And it gives the Reds flexibility that they don't have to reach on a quarterback anytime soon. And, if he's not, he's not. If he is, he is. And you can sign a formidable veteran free agent quarterback to sit behind him. Or start or whatever, whatever. If he messes up, he's not who he is. We don't know. But, that's a big time stage, and a guy that hadn't had that much experience to go in and play the way he did against, one of the top defenses that completely neutralized the run. Gibson, he was out. They did what they had to do, and they made it a lot more exciting than people thought they would. Tom Brady recently has just been on an absolute tear. I think he thinks it's 2008. He's back with a vengeance. And, as long as he's not crazy being a complete douche nugget, I'm all for it, man. I'm all for people second chances and turning their life around and stuff. And so part of me is people have already counted him out. They hate him for what he did. People make mistakes, but, I'm happy for the dude. I hope he keeps balling out and, gets his life in the right order. And I think, being where he is with Tom Brady and, I say what I do about Tom Brady, I can't stand the way they plays the game. I don't like Uggs, but, he is a great pro. He's a great veteran, great leader, and he's, the greatest quarterback that we've seen, as much as that pains me to say. Rings don't lie. The situations he's won don't lie. He's been here before, so I think that makes him dangerous. The matchup that they have coming up this weekend with the Saints, we'll talk about that on Thursday also. But, I think that he's got a lot of confidence in himself right now, like he always does, but he's playing hot and his receivers are playing. If they had a run game, I think that they might come out of the NFC, to be honest with you. The game, it was back and forth, man. I mean, there was a couple mistakes on each side that might have swayed towards the Buccaneers' way. But, all in all, I mean, they did what they had to do to win the game, but they were definitely shaking their boots at times because the Redskins weren't backing down. And I think, the fans of, I keep saying Redskins, sorry, Washington. But, the Washington team, they definitely have a lot to look forward to, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So I think that coming up in the near future, if they get some things in order, they have a good future. So it was a good confidence game for them, even though they lost. But we'll see what happens coming up soon. And it's the Washington football team. Just leave me alone.
Well, in your defense, this is the first year they've actually redacted the name and called themselves the name redacted. They were the Redskins for a long time, just like the San Diego Chargers were the San Diego Chargers for a long time.
Still call them San Diego, and I'll always call them San Diego.
And then the Rams, when they went from LA to St. Louis and then back to LA. I mean, people still called them St. Louis Rams. Even this year, the Oakland Raiders, John Gruden wore an Oakland Raiders hat, realized he's wearing an Oakland Raiders hat, and put on a Las Vegas hat after halftime. So, I mean, it happens. People make mistakes. Players screw up, just like Day said next Friday. So we'll move on with it. But yeah, absolutely. Got to give credit to the Washington football team. They were scrappy. They got after Tom. They didn't come out with the dub, but they hit him. And you got to give respect to that defense. They obviously have 5 first-rounders along that defensive line, 4 of which played most of the game. I mean, they're an excellent group led by Chase Young.
And I will say this, like with all the credit that we're giving them too, is that what I didn't think was going to happen happened, and that's that the Washington down. The offense played good enough to win that game.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that because they, like you've spoken about and you've made the point in private conversation, it's real difficult having to prepare for a quarterback who's completely different from the one you were preparing for before because Heineke was moving around and he was mobile. Alex Smith, he can scramble a little bit, but he's more of a statuesque guy who can pick you apart off the 3-step and 5-step drop running the West Coast offense. But Heineke was getting him. He was running the rock. The running backs didn't do a whole lot as far as trying to run between the tackles, but they didn't need to because Heineke was going off, making plays on the move.
Dude, that touchdown run was so badass.
Yes, it was. It's a shame that he got hurt on that run, but, whatever. That dude gave it all, and I respect that, especially given you have to, what's the word I'm looking for? Playoff time. There ain't no time to be soft. It's nut up or shut up and get it done. And they tried their damnedest, but in the end, the talent of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won out. That receiver core is stupid, and you got to give Mike Evans even more credit. He gets hurt the week before, comes back like it's nothing, and has 6 for $119. If anything, it was Chris Godwin who looked more like the hurt receiver because he caught 5 of 12 for 79.
Listen, let him play bad. Let him have a terrible playoff because he's a free agent. If we don't get A-Rob, him and Corey Davis are some guys that are there. He might be a little cheaper if he doesn't have a strong playoff, but we know that what Chris Godwin can do. Speaking of that, 2 of those 3 are Penn State cats.
Hashtag come to the Ravens.
We get 2 of them.
I would not hate that. I would not hate that at all. Godwin would be a great asset, but that'll be a little bit of speculation come after the Super Bowl and everything. But yeah.
Yeah, I'll pick 32.
Absolutely. Antonio Brown on him coming back, he is a good comeback story. I mean, a lot of his wounds were self-inflicted, but
yeah, he's a dumbass. We all know that, but he's a dumbass. I just think there's a lot more line. I mean, mental is real, and people make fun of him and laugh at him and all that stuff, and it is all self-inflicted. But at the same time, I really hope he does turn it around.
Absolutely. I mean, you got kids involved. You can't be like that for your kids. Interestingly, he hadn't quite been right since he got leveled by Vontaze Burfict back in 2015. So who knows? Maybe it's a little bit of cognitive damage to his dome after getting knocked out, or maybe I'm just being reckless with my speculation. Who on earth knows that? But got to give the Bucs their due. That front is nice. They proved why they're as stout a front 7 as they are. And Devin White was out because of COVID, but they didn't miss him that much because Levante David had himself a day. And now they go on to play another team whom we'll get into after this joyous occasion, reflecting on the Sunday morning wildcard game where your Baltimore Ravens and mine came into Nissan Stadium, saw the flaming thumbtacks, punched them in the mouth, and came away with the dub, sending them packing and crying the next day. So Grant, holla, let's reflect, let's celebrate. Lamar Jackson got his first playoff win ever. Let's go, baby.
Hootie hoo, hot money. He did it, dude. He silenced the critics. Nah, man, I'm just so fucking sick of hearing that narrative. It's like you're criticizing this dude for not winning a playoff game, but the guys that you're comparing him to haven't even been to the playoffs. Do you know how stupid you sound? And the fact that you're like, oh, he's 0-2, he's 0-2. Okay, well, damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. Because last year he threw for 350 yards and ran for $140. So he combined for almost 500 total yards by himself, and we lost. This year he combines for 240, and he didn't throw for too many yards. He's going to lose. He's not a good quarterback. He didn't throw for enough yards. But he won. So which is it? What do you want from the guy? I think that it was fucking poetic justice, and I was so excited. The greatest NFL moment that I've seen is that stomp the logo, because that was it was like it was poetic justice, man. It was there, it happened, and it was even better that it was Marcus Peters of all people, and like he didn't hesitate. He had that pick, did that baseball slide, stood up, everybody just went straight to it. And they had that next gen stat or whatever it was that showed all the fans running, all the players running to the logo. And it's like, man, there was a lot more people there than I thought was. But I mean, it was fun. My favorite reaction was Marlon Humphrey sitting down on the logo, looking at him like, what's up? But no, I mean, on a serious note, as far as the game goes, I think that it was an all-around good game. I think they played their game. They didn't shoot themselves in the foot too many times. Lamar's throw, that was a terrible throw on that interception. People were like, oh, that was a touchdown. First of all, it wasn't a touchdown. You don't even know if he would have caught it or not. The way he had to lead him to the sideline, it would have been a tough play regardless. So it would have, could have, should have. But yeah, it was a bad throw. He threw it inside. He should at least threw it outside. The Mark Andrews drop on third down had me hot. I'm like, this dude doesn't show up in big games. And then he completely shut me up with that. That the biggest play of the game was that third down in the fourth quarter when Lamar put the stiff arm on, I think it was the Dory Jackson on the blitz, and rolled to the sideline and threw that ball across his body. And that, I mean, first of all, the accuracy to be able to do that, where you're running full speed, you stiff arm a guy, you're trying not to get tackled. It's I think it was like 3rd and 9. And you throw right before you hit the sideline, you're throwing across your body, but you throw down the seam of the sideline. And you hit a dude that's got a DB on his back, right square in the numbers. I mean, those are the things that people don't talk about. And it's like the throw to Hollywood, the one on the corner route. Like he put that exactly where it should be. I mean, he dropped it over fantastic coverage. He dropped it right over his shoulder. It wouldn't have been you couldn't have possibly had a better throw than that. But you don't hear a word about it. It's all about the interception. It's all about, he didn't throw for too many yards, but that's the thing is like his efficiency is insane. I mean, he's still how many touchdowns to 48 touchdowns to no interceptions in the red zone. So, get off his fucking back, you losers. But Titans, they're a tough team. They scared me probably more than anybody besides the Chiefs. Wasn't worried about the Browns, wasn't worried about the Steelers, Colts, wasn't worried about them. Bills, not too worried about, but I was worried about the Titans. They play the same style of football that Baltimore does. They're going to ground and pound you, make a staple to the game. And if they can control the clock and that's what they like to do, then you got problems. And they have, Corey Davis. We've talked about him in free agency. A.J. Brown, who's one of my favorite young receivers. Just his game I love his game, man. He's a good dude. He's respectful and he balls out. And, he gives credit when credit's due. I think Marlowe tweeted something the other day about how he didn't have a good game and, but it was great that they got the dub and all of this. And AJ Brown quote tweeted was like, yeah, something about like, you're a legend, bro. I respect you or something like that. Or I respect you or your game. That speaks volumes. Cause I mean, Marlowe did have a tough time with him. And it wasn't that he was in bad coverage. I mean, AJ Brown's just a monster. I mean, some of those balls that Tannehill was putting on him, they were great throws and AJ Brown was making the plays. I mean, sometimes as a DB, you can't do too much, especially in a league that's catered to the passing offense where they call, penalties on everything. If you breathe on them, it's a PI. And what are you going to do? You're going to take a 30-yard PI or are you going to take the chance of playing good defense and hoping that he doesn't catch it or get a hand in or something? But I'm very proud of the team. I love how they responded. I think that Titans, hopefully they got humbled a little bit. I like the way they play football as far as offensive and defensively. They're aggressive. I don't deal with the antics and the bullshit with Vrabel and all that, but he's got his troops and they will go to war and they'll go to war with anybody. So, I do have respect for that in that aspect. But Baltimore's ready and they're hungry. And like Peter Schrager said that we keep seeing is like, this is the team that you don't want to see in the playoffs. And it's not that they don't have anything to lose. It's they know what they lost last year. They were there. They were the, Chiefs of this year. They were the Bills of this year. The Bills are basically what the Ravens were last year, just Ravens were the number 1 record, and we'll just talk about that another time. But, there's a lot that goes into it, and the Ravens know what it takes. They know what they missed up, not to look past, play every week to week. And I don't really I don't look over anybody, and I won't look over anybody because Bills are a great team. But like I said, I feel better about this coming weekend than I did last weekend.
One of the things that put a big smile on my face was seeing the stat line of Derrick Henry finishing that game. 18 catches, but carries for 40 yards, no tutters, a 2.2 yard per carry average. The Monstars came to play. Those moves that were made in the offseason, they came out and they said, you're not going to punk us again. Because all that week that was leading up, what you going to do about Derrick Henry? He ran all over you earlier this year. He ran all over you in the playoffs. What are you going to do to stop King Henry? And that King looked like a court jester this past week. Let's keep that real.
Pernell motherfucking McPhee, bro. That's the best game he's played as a Raven.
Hell yeah, it has. Taking everyone to school with setting the edge on the running game. And you got A.J. Brown. The man is a beast. Got to give him his respect. I mean, he got away with that push off on Marlon in the end zone. But, I mean, that's neither here nor there.
How do you miss that? Like, first, like, not to sidetrack, but how the fuck do you miss that call? He clearly extended his arm. Marlo's legs buckle. He falls backwards. And it's like, you call, and they just had that ticky-tack bullshit after that, too.
Yep, exactly. Or not immediately after the offensive pass interference on old Willie Snead in the fourth quarter, which would have iced the game. But, hey, the ending was better with them calling that just because then it got to the Marcus Peters pick, and they got to go ahead and stomp out that logo because fuck the Titans. Just keep it 100. The rivalry's been renewed. It's back. There's a genuine dislike between the two teams, and they're not even division rivals. That's the beauty of it. It's a genuine hatred, and the NFL has been missing that. Like the Steelers and Ravens rivalry, it hadn't been as spicy like in recent years.
Let's be real. They're our little brother. The Titans are our little brother. They try to play like us. They try to be like us. They're the little brother.
It's the two halves of the same coin historically because the Titans have always prided themselves on a running game and a defense, just like Pittsburgh has always prided themselves on a running game and a defense. And that's just what we do as well. It's that kind of mentality and that kind of blue-collar style of play that breeds a whole lot of contempt from opposing teams, and I love it. Like I said to everybody else, maybe in the group chat, just in person, I want this team to be the MF Doom of the NFL. Embrace being the supervillains. Let everyone hate you because it's beautiful. It is beautiful seeing the vitriol being spewed by everyone else, and let them hate you.
Fucking hate being the favorite. I hate being talked about on ESPN. I hate being talked about on NFL Network. Like, they're unstoppable. They're going to win. They're going to the Super Bowl. Like, no, shut the fuck up. It's like when Tucker goes to kick and you're like, oh, he does it. He never misses. Boom, and he misses. Like, dude, we get it. Like, we know. Stop talking about it. But, like, I love being the villain. I'm with you, man. Like, I like that aspect of being the underdog, the villain. Like, everybody's against you because it just makes it that much sweeter.
Exactly. And the simplest words to put them is, fuck them. If they don't like what they're watching, they can go watch something else because those punk bitches got punked on Sunday morning. But that was beautiful to watch. Malcolm Butler flipping the bird after that pick. Yeah, that was an awful throw. That's just what it was. We'll get that out of the way. Then Lamar bounced back with a 49-yard run for a touchdown with the sideline play he made to Mark Andrews a little bit after that. I was with you when Mark dropped that pass on third down. I was pissed, and I was sitting there like, oh, no, here we go again. They fall down 10-0, and the narrative, Lamar Jackson can't win a playoff game. Lamar Jackson can't come back from 2 scores down. They can't do this. They're not built this way, and they come back and they win from 2 scores down. I'm glad they got the people to shut the fuck up about that. So we'll see you in the track meet, but that being said, that's perfectly fine. We'll deal with that in another week. But in conclusion, it was a beautiful victory. On to the Bills.
Buffalo, we're coming. We're coming. Fuck your celery. Fuck your wings. Fuck your blue cheese. Fuck Niagara Falls. We're coming.
Exactly. And y'all deserve to lose all 4 of those damn Super Bowls in a row. Anyway, let's move on to the Saints and the Bears game that aired on Nickelodeon and the slime that occurred whenever someone would score a touchdown. I'd say before I let you give your thoughts, Grant, I think the most notable moment of that game was when they called a penalty on Cordero Patterson for, I believe it was unsportsmanlike conduct, and they caught him on the hot mic just saying, "What the fuck?" on Nickelodeon. That had me busting up laughing because I was watching it on Prime because I don't have Nickelodeon. That's fantastic. Now you got to explain to SpongeBob and Patrick what the hell the F word is outside of the foghorn noise. So anyway, Grant, spit that business, homie.
Man, what the hell happened with that though? But that was funny because what like of all things, like you got 14-year-old sideline reporters, like you got with the slime everywhere, and then you got Cordell Patterson, fuck, which is what all of us thought when we saw the NFL was on Nickelodeon. What the fuck? Not really or like the NFL in general, but just a playoff game. Like, yeah, we get it. You're hurting for money. Okay, go ahead. But dude, that whole game was, everybody knew that the Saints were going to come out and do what they did. That was my upset pick. I thought the Bears had a chance. Nick Foles took them to overtime this year, and Mitchell Trubisky wasn't playing bad, like I had said last week. But a lot of the stuff, man, you can just tell that they're just a bad coach team. They did everything to play into the Saints' hands. Kamara's Kamara. Michael Thomas was back semi. He had a pretty good game. Drew Brees had a solid game. Defense played well for the Saints. But that Wims drop, man, that Wims drop turned the entire game. I think if he makes that touchdown catch, that game's completely different because that puts a lot more pressure on the Saints. And, man, when you drop a play like that, when you're not supposed to win, well, you never know you're not supposed to win. But, what I'm saying? Like, people don't ever think that you're going to win something and you have a chance to do, like, the unthinkable or, shock the world mentality. And you have a perfect pass like that and you drop it wide open. It sucks the life out of everybody on that team. Like, now what? And then now we're down in a distant situation. We're already down 7-0. They had the big turnover on the pick. By the big man pick, but I think that that game just was. Saints had a nice draw. Saints had a really nice draw. Bears got to get Nagy out of there, man. They got to revamp the offense a little bit. Quarterback. They're going to lose Allen Robinson. He gave them what he had. They didn't want to hammer something out with him, like he had said. I guess today he was talking about or yesterday. He's like, man, we should have basically hammered something out in 365 days, which I don't blame him, dude. You got somebody that talented that could, solidify your passing game. You just need a quarterback. You don't let him walk at all. And you don't necessarily – and he's a good dude. He wasn't even really, being respectful or downplaying it or anything. He's basically like, I kind of, think that we should have had something done by now. But, I'll test the market and see what it's going to be. But all in all, for the game itself, I think the Saints and the Bucks coming up is going to be a pretty good game. Battle of the G-Paws. Who's got the coolest tennis balls on the end of their walker. But I think it's going to come down to a defensive game. Who's going to get those big stops on third downs. But but as far as this game, dude, we all knew that what was going to happen. Well, I didn't because that was my upset pick. But if you got to differentiate yourself. But if I was betting or putting money on the line, I'm not stupid. I'm going to take the Saints. But I would have loved to see the Bears win. And, I think that they had their opportunities and they just didn't capitalize on them. The game wasn't what it looked like in a sense, but I think that the Saints are going to have trouble in the next round for sure.
Before I give my thoughts on the game, I'll ask actually a couple things. First, it was just announced today that Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy are staying in Chicago for 2021, while defensive coordinator Chuck Pagano is retiring from coaching. So before I get into it, I'll ask you the question: will they give Mitchell Trubisky an extension, or will they let him walk?
Dude, you can't. I mean, I'm a UNC fan. I'm all for him. Bears stupidity to take him second. I was excited for him to do it just because it's a Carolina dude. I was like, hell yeah, we got a number 2 overall pick. You know what I'm saying? But, all in all, you look at the quarterbacks in that draft. You got Deshaun Watson, Mahomes. Mahomes, nobody really thought he was going to be what he is because, you can't really judge a Texas Tech quarterback in that run and shoot offense. But, Deshaun Watson, everybody knew that he was a whole lot better than Mitchell Trubisky in any aspect. And, he's been there. He proved it. He did everything. And you take him. I just didn't understand that. But you can't. If they do, that's just them being fat stubborn, man. And I talk to a lot of Bears fans, and I have a lot of friends that are Bears fans. And, Nagy's done, man. I can't believe that they're even not moving him. And what sucks is the only guy that's leaving, Pagano, is the only one that knows how to play football.
And that's the truth. Now, I'm not going to lie. I wouldn't mind seeing Mitchell Trubisky be a backup to another mobile quarterback or any year on the NFL. maybe being the clipboard holder for Watson or Lamar Jackson or anybody like that. Because if they go down, you can still run your offense, and he's a very good runner in open space. He's not Lamar, but he can do it.
They killed his confidence. Like, I mean, like he didn't really get a fair shake. I mean, not like Josh Rosen. Josh Rosen got fucked more than anybody. But like Mitchell Trubisky didn't get like a fair shake. He didn't really get like, that time to really grow, and they threw him in. And sometimes it's hard when you're like that guy and you get thrown into that fire. Yeah, you get picked out early, but I mean, you don't know till you're there. And when you're a competitive team, everybody Bears defense, that pressure's on him too. Shit, I got a good defense. I got to perform. I can't fuck up. They had just drafted David Montgomery, was David Montgomery? No, that was the same year. But, they still had like I think Jordan Howard was still there his rookie year. Tariq Cohen was there. And like, that's when these guys were really kind of showing out. They had players on offense. Allen Robinson was there. And, the guy goes in, and it's harder when you're playing for a team that has a chance. When you're that young guy and you kind of get thrown in the fire and you're playing for somebody that has a chance, it's like, am I the problem? Shit, if I fuck up, and that puts more pressure on you. So like, it's a tough situation for him. And I'm not trying to defend him or anything, because he does have to play better, but he hasn't had the best of situations there. And it might be better for him to move on, back up for maybe a year, get another shot on a situation, hopefully not on an injury, because I don't want to see anybody get. But, hopefully he gets another chance where he gets some time to mature a little bit more, because he really did start to come on, mid-season to late when he like took over for Nick Foles and stuff. But, it is what it is with him. And I think that he did. I mean, I think he got a shitty shake.
Absolutely. I would love to see him go to Kansas City and but play behind and back up Mahomes and learn from Andy Reid. He's the quarterback guru. He's developed so many different backups back in the day to become starters, eventual players to play for other teams. Trubisky would be great learning his system. He can at least, I think he can have an Alex Smith kind of renaissance if he goes to the right place. But anywho, for me, this game was a foregone conclusion. This was the game where we differed, but I happened to be right in this instance. I mean, no disrespect to the Bears, but I'm not a Mitchell Trubisky believer in that offense. And you're absolutely right. He didn't get a fair shake in Chicago. I mean, shoot, you get drafted second overall where the team trades up for you, and your head coach is John Fox, a defensive guy who doesn't really develop quarterbacks like that. He gets fired the next year. You bring in a Matt Nagy who coached under Andy Reid, but he's not quite Andy Reid.
No, he was like the one from the tree that like the branch broke a lot sooner than it should have.
Yep, that's exactly right. But God bless him, he's coaching there for another season. Who knows? Maybe they'll bring him back because Ryan Pace doesn't want to admit he was wrong and should have taken Deshaun Watson or Pat Mahomes. But that's neither here nor there.
How do you not, though?
Yeah, I mean, nepotism, arrogance, and just not wanting to be wrong.
They could have literally traded back, because I forgot who the defensive lineman was in that draft. That big name.
Solomon Thomas.
He went third to the Niners. But they had, there was a couple other guys, people would have traded up for to that spot to get. And it's like, man, you could have traded back maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 spots plus, added some mid to late round capital, and then still got Mitchell Trubisky if you really wanted him. Nobody was going to take him then.
Nope, not at all. Either way, I expected the game to go down the way they did, and it did. Breeze played fine. The running game was there, and Kamara went off, proving he's one of the best backs in the NFL, and that's just what that is. Michael Thomas had a solid game. Jared Cook played all right. I didn't see this. Deontay Harris going off 7-7 for 83 yards. That's not bad. Well, there you go, my guy. There you go. You surprised me. But either way, with this win, the Saints get to play host for a three-peat. It would be a rubber match if the Bucs actually beat them once, but now they get to play the division rival Tampa Bay Bucs this coming Sunday. Wait, no, it might be Saturday. One of the 2 days this weekend is going to include a game between the Saints and the Bucs at New Orleans, where the Saints have dominated the team. So we'll preview that later in the week. But meanwhile, let's get into it. For me, it was the most shocking game of the week. Grant picked this one right. The Cleveland Browns, the little brothers of the AFC North, coming into Heinz Field to play the big bad old Pittsburgh Steelers, who started off 11-0 and limped into the playoffs, losing 4 of their next 5 games. Yes, they lost 4 of their next 5 games to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers 48-37. Who, fun fact, the Steelers were actually the Browns' previous 2 opponents when they made the playoffs and lost to them both times. So, Grant, get into it. How about them Steelers, dude?
Cadillac, shut the fuck up. Listen, that whole game is on Juju, man. Blame yourself. I told you guys the other day on the show, man, like that was fuel that did not need to be added to the fire. Like, you have a team that doesn't, like, everybody's against them. They have that mentality, like nobody likes them, nobody wants them to win. They haven't been there in how long? They haven't won a playoff game, over 20 years. So, like, you know, they had something to prove, and the Steelers are not a good team, and everybody said that. You know, you get the people that were like, oh man, they were 11-0 frauds. You get the people that are 11-0. You can't be a fraud at 11-0. Yes, you can. That's why the NFL is 16 weeks, not 11 weeks. If it was 11 weeks, they were the best team in football 11 weeks, but then you still got the playoffs when they started losing. So everybody knew that they snuck away a lot of games they shouldn't have won in those 11 games too. They were fraudulent. So there's nothing wrong with saying that. And in this situation, you know, you have the Browns that come in, Baker Mayfield, you know, that was funny as hell what he did afterwards when Colin Cowherd flipped his hat backward in his interview. But, I mean, you know, they showed up. Nick Chubb, man, that dude is so fun to watch. You know, I think I said the other week, you know, that he's, you know, I think he's the best all-around back in the league, and he goes out and has reception or whatever he did. But, you know, nor here nor there. But, you know, I think that everything did, you know, come out on top for the Browns. You know, they had a really tough matchup. But like I said before, we always say it, anything can happen. Steelers, man, they got a lot of, like, they're in complete rebuild now. You got to get another quarterback. There's no way. Ben Roethlisberger's due $41.5 million next year. Like, that's how much of your cap. That's got to be at least, 27% of the cap. So, like, you know, Pouncey's going to retire. You know, you got some guys coming off injuries. You know, they'll be good to be beside the ball like Devin Bush and Dupree. But, you know, you got to find identity, man. You got to get back to Steeler football. You're not running the ball at all. You know, it's pretty embarrassing for Pittsburgh Steelers to not have a running game. You know, you always look at them, and, you know, you mentioned before, you know, Pittsburgh Steelers power running game. You know, run the football, control the offense. And they're not even a blink of that. And they got these young diva receivers who have got to be the most annoying people on the planet. Deontay Johnson's the only one that doesn't seem like a complete tool bag. You know, Chase Claypool, that guy, you know, Juju, he done. I thought, you know, we talked before the show, and, you know, we both like Juju before the season, but man, he really showed who he was. And that dude is annoying as hell too. And I think that you need to get away from that, man. That distracts. You know, you got mixed emotions on a team when that stuff kind of happens. You got guys that are here trying to draw attention to themselves, negative or positive, and then you got guys that are like, shut up and play football. So at some point, even as a coaching staff, Mike Tomlin has to step up and say, hey, you know, I'm in charge here. You know, stop the bullshit. Get off TikTok. You know, do TikTok on your free time. Do it in your apartment. Do it at your house, your condo, wherever. You know, do that shit then. Do it at the club. You know, don't do it, you know, wear your mask though, but don't do it in my locker room. Don't do it after a game. Don't do it on somebody's logo, because they completely got a target put on their. And I do believe in those situations that, you know, you can hurt yourself, and they completely hurt themselves. And the Browns walked right into their stadium and manned up. They went up 24-0, I think, and, you know, at that point, the whole world was like, what the fuck is going on right now? Like what is really happening with this game? And, you know, the Browns do what wins January and February football. And we always say it with the Ravens. I just mentioned it with the Steelers, you know, the Seahawks, we talked about it earlier. Those teams that are power teams and can also, you know, play smart and utilize, you know, their offense as far as the passing schemes, you know, they win games, they win playoff games, they win championships. So it's an elevation thing. And it's like, you know, they got to get back to that identity. The Browns are playing with that identity right now. You know, the receiving core doesn't really scare anybody. You know, Landry's a great receiver, but I don't think he's a 1. He might be like a 1B or a 1C. But, you know, they don't have a lot going on for him. You know, I mean, you know, Hooper could be what it is, but, you know, he was a good matchup this week because of their lack of what they have? They had Spillane on Landry on that one touchdown. It's like you got one receiver on the field, you got all these DBs, and you have the linebacker guarding their number one. Like what? What is that? Like who like there's no you don't check your defense, you don't make any adjustments like pre-snap adjustments. Like you don't look at that and be like, hey man, the white dude wearing number 41 probably shouldn't guard Jarvis Landry. Let's just be real. Like you're asking to get smoked. And I mean it happened. And that just comes down to coaching, discipline. Like, there's a lot of things that factor in that. And I don't really see the leadership on that side of the ball is on Cam Hayward. And, is he ready to be on his way out? Don't want to say anything like that because of his, I don't want to ever question a man's character, but, they're not motivated. They're not playing motivated. TJ Watt and them, they're not playing motivated. But the Browns did what they had to do. They got a tough matchup, and it's going to be a fun game to watch, man.
Most definitely. I got a couple thoughts on this. First off, to me, I'll say it. It's the end of an era for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're no longer that team that was bullying around the Bengals and the Browns for all these years, being arguably the top dog in the division, always switching between them and Baltimore every season. But they're no longer that team. Ben is done. He has to go. Fickner should probably go along with him, and they should reinvest in those coaching assistants. That was stupid having Robert Spillane try to cover Jarvis Landry one-on-one. They do things like that sometimes. Like I remember a Sunday night game where I caught LJ Fort, who I love on this team now, but he was stuck in the slot having to cover Keenan Allen one-on-one. That you ain't gonna win that. That's all bad.
That's route run. As much as I man crush on Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen is the best route runner in football, so that's even crazier.
Without question. But yes, they are done. Good on Cleveland, because now that they've taken care of the big bad boogeyman on their shoulders, to me it's going to be coming down to the Ravens and Browns every season for the AFC North. I think Cleveland is here. I think they're ready to compete. They have an excellent running game with Chubb and Kareem Hunt, like you said. Nick Chubb is a better back than Derrick Henry. You can definitely make that argument. Landry's not bad as a receiver, and Baker seems to play better with throwing him into those other receivers than he does to Odell. So we'll see what comes of it. This Sunday will be an interesting game. We'll preview it later in the week. But meanwhile, we have to wrap it up tonight. So, thank y'all for listening, and we'll catch y'all on another day.
See ya!
Grant, Jake.
Zone 32, only on NeutralZoneInfraction.com.
NZI Properties.